Hey, 6 p.m. We got a conversation about to happen. I'm going to invite Terry Yaffe, and we are going to talk about vulnerability. Forging relationships, building new relationships,
Oops.
um, based on the idea to
There
communicate
I am.
ourselves. There you are. Hey, what's up? We made it work.
Yay!
How you
How,
doing?
how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I just went and got jumped in the pool. Um, got some sun. And now I'm
Perfect.
feeling lazy, so I'm ready to do this.
I am too.
So we're going to talk
Welcome.
today. We're going to talk today.
You froze.
There we go. So vulnerability is a state of being exposed, allowing ourselves or being in a state where we open ourselves to possible judgment or even harm. So with that said, vulnerability to me is very powerful. It's a very powerful state that we allow ourselves to go into. And one of the best gifts you can give anybody you care about is the freedom to allow themselves to be vulnerable, to be for you to allow someone to trust them rather in your vulnerability. And so I think it's a very powerful thing. So with that said, what do you feel and what is your definition of vulnerability?
Well, for a lot of people, it's pretty scary. Very scary. Um, However, I'm going to go back in time and maybe we start there
Okay.
when we were young and we were vulnerable. And kids can be pretty mean. And I do remember getting so hurt because I was a very sensitive kid.
Me too.
And, I'd be with my friends and they'd be passing notes around that I didn't see and they
Mm.
were excluding me. That can be devastating. And it was. I spent a lot of years being vulnerable, not being vulnerable, but having people take advantage of my sensitivity.
Okay.
And when you have that as a baseline, what do you do when you grow up and are confronted with what do you do? Do you wear the masks or do you let them down? And through everything I went through, I've decided just to be.
Mhm.
And I have had several friends that, I don't have a lot of friends, but the ones that I have, I really care about.
Mhm.
And what I found was I had these two friends. I loved them. We'd go out together. One of them, I'd go out with the husband and my husband and myself. And one day, she wasn't my friend.
Why?
And
What happened?
I have no idea. Never. And I kept saying, have I offended you? Have I offended you? Because that's what I do. No, 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 no. And this is now years. We we chit chat because she lives in my building. We chit chat. When I see her, that's it. Another friend that I loved just was very unaware. And I think I took the high road because I'm much more elevated than I was back then.
Of course, yeah.
And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take the high road. So the one in my building, I'd say, oh, hi. So she had to say something. Um, and I do find that vulnerability is a very heavy topic with people. Very. Because a lot of people wear a mask or masks and they don't allow themselves to be vulnerable, to be vulnerable.
You
What
you
about
make some
you?
very good points. You make some very good points, and this we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this with several people. Our domestication. When we were young, we didn't feel shame. We weren't introduced to shame, so vulnerability was natural. We felt something, we shared. We felt something, we said it. I'm hurting, or I'm wondering, or I'm curious, or I'm loving. I'm all of these things, and then when someone turns around and says, "No, that's weird." Wait, what? The feeling normal is weird, and then we're exposed to judgment. You're stupid for this. You're stupid for thinking this. You're stupid for saying this. And then we go inside ourselves. And another thing you touched on was sometimes we realize that, yeah, take the high road. Always take the high road. And some people go their entire lives never being able to get back to that childhood version of themselves where they allow themselves to be vulnerable. So whatever issue this woman had with you, she had to suffer on her own. When she could have just said, this is what I'm feeling, and it may be irrational, but you're my friend and I want to discuss it with you. And everything would have been sorted. This woman may take it to the grave now because she doesn't realize that all of the things we go through offer us the opportunity to say, whew, okay, that was a great ride. I want to go back to being more childlike because that was my best version of myself, you know? And as a friend, if we can, in taking the high road, create that, I hate saying safe space because it's so overused, but create that platform, create that situation where someone is free to tell us what they're really feeling. It's liberating. It creates more of a bond in a friendship and a relationship. It sets people free. It helps us understand each other better, you know. And I feel like it's robbed from us when we're little because of judgment, because of the way other people are feeling about themselves. So
That's true.
yeah,
I have made it a policy that if I feel there's a rift with someone, I will say, have I offended you? Is there something going on? It's most people don't do that. The word is confrontation. No, people can't be confrontative,
yeah,
so they let it go. And because of everything I've been through, I make it my business. I mean, it just happened where somebody was going to send me dates to get together, and then she didn't. And every time I called you, and when I got her, I said, "Did I offend you with something?" She said, "No, no, no, not at all." But at least you know where you are with something.
yeah, yeah.
To me, when somebody leaves me, it triggers my abandonment because I've had that all my life, feeling abandoned. I know how to deal with it today, but when we're little and we're not seen and we're not heard, and when people choose sides, you're not chosen, that's devastating for a young person.
It is. It is. Um, and again, the tragedy in all of that is if we experience this as a young person, but we never figure out the the root and insecurity of humanity and why people do things, then we can set it free, right? Then we One of the best lessons I've ever learned in any of the self work and the research and growth that I've gone through is to never take anything personally. And we take everything personal when we're young, right? Everything hurts. Oh God, this person who I barely know doesn't like me. Oh, that hurts. How irrational is that? You know what I mean? This person who's going through something, they don't like me. They said something bad. Oh, and it's my fault. And it's not my fault.
Right.
It's what
Right.
they're going through. And so you talk about abandonment, all these things from childhood that we hold on to, that this was another thing I learned. Humans are the only mammals that will allow themselves to suffer over and over for one thing. If a deer runs into a tree, he goes, "Oh, that was stupid." And he keeps moving and tells himself, "I don't want to run into that tree again." We run into a tree, we look around to see if anybody saw us. We're like, "Oh my God, I'm so stupid. What if someone saw us?" We continue to suffer. We cringe, oh, thinking about that moment I ran into a tree. You can't revisit it. You can't go back there. All of our lessons in life are to take us along our journey to make us better. When you get to the top and you go, wow, I'm not going to take anything personally. And because I know it's more powerful when I communicate rather than when I keep it inside, I'm going to offer that to everybody in my life as well. There was a very powerful moment in one of the leadership groups that I'm a part of, where a man confided that his wife and him were no longer intimate. And they'd been together since just out of high school. They had kids and everything. And they're getting up in years. And he still wanted to be intimate with her, and she didn't. And he was thinking about, Lulu, shut off the water, please, babe. He was thinking about, I have these needs. I have these needs to fulfill. Do I step out on her? This woman who was my partner, who ran our family together, who raised kids together. I have these needs. Do I step out to fulfill my needs? And I'm like, how do I tactfully deal with this? Because I hadn't experienced this yet in my life, and something beautiful happened. I was talking to a friend of mine, a woman, and she said simply, she still probably wants to be intimate. She's going through different stages in her life. Intimacy has to be different. It's not something that is forced. It's not something that may be quick, where you had to go through these motions when you're married and you're running a family and you're just, you're on the go, and so you're making everything work. And I thought another reason I wanted to have this conversation with you was, it's so powerful in a relationship to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to communicate and create a very new opportunity for intimacy at a different stage of life.
Right.
Yes, my love.
Dada, did you put like the powder that we made the slime with?
It's on the door of the fridge. Yes. Lulu's making slime. Um, so one of the things that I feel is like one of the biggest gifts in life is, no matter if it's a friendship, if it's a relationship, there's a I can't remember this guy's name, and I knew I was going to forget this, but there's a whole uh, protocol for nonviolent communication. This means when someone is agitated, someone's in your face, instead of meeting their energy with negative energy, you say, "Hey, hold on, hold on. I know you're not really mad at me. What do you need from me? What can I do for you?" And that takes so much power, but it's so liberating for anybody who's involved, right? So if this man in this relationship was to go to his wife, his partner, his rock of 20 years, instead of going, "I'm having needs and she's not meeting them, and I'm going to go step out and try to find it so I can meet my needs," and betray this woman, my partner of all these years, instead of doing that, imagine how beautiful it could be if he could go to her and say, "Babe, I'm going through this. I'm really desiring you, and I feel like you have no interest." That opens the door for her to say, "You know what? I'm desiring you too." And it's exciting for us to be at this stage where we've survived parenthood. We've survived, putting our family and paying the bills and doing all these things together. And now let's renew this. The same two people who were young and started this journey together at a later stage, the intimacy can be even more powerful because they've learned so many lessons, and they can go, "Wow, I trust you. You trust me. Let's communicate and see where this goes." You know, you don't throw in the towel at that point. That's when you start to really talk. And I think that's beautiful. That's another reason I thought it'd be so powerful to have conversations between men and women. When women are talking about their issues, it's usually a woman who's leading the discussion. Everyone's going, yeah. What if a man's point of view comes in and he can say, "Man, I respect you so much as a woman. Your power, your strength, your resilience, the fact that you can bring life into this world. Oh, I'm in awe of you." What if a man goes in and says, and creates that space, and instead of men even going in and going, "Man, I don't know what's going on. I can't talk to my girl." And I don't know how to navigate these things because society says this and this and this and this. You can never show vulnerability because she may think you're not a man, and so then we keep it inside. What if a woman was to say, "No, that's not how we feel at all. This is how we feel." You know what I'm saying? Yes, my love.
I don't know what it is. I can't find it.
Honey, I don't think I have it, and I think you're going to have to wait until I can get up because right now I'm having a conversation with Terry, okay? You don't
So
really need it. You can do something
tell
else.
us, tell us a time when you were young, when you had issues, vulnerability, not seen, not heard, that it really kind of got to your heart.
The reason I'm so in touch with what I'm saying today is because I used to think I was weird as a kid because I wasn't just running around being surface. I always observed and I always felt, like you said, I always felt very deeply about things. I'm like, God, I wish I was that kid that could scream at the TV when the football game was on and stuff like that. And I wasn't. I was collecting data. Always, my entire life, I was observing people. I always really appreciated good, and bad really hurt me. So, at one point when I realized that my life, my childhood wasn't fair, I started to become introverted. Affected me when I couldn't just be a kid because of the situation I grew up in. It forced me to shut down completely. To shut down completely. How could I be vulnerable if I couldn't trust or count on anyone as a young man or as a kid, as a little boy? How could I do that as an adult? I already know what it feels like to be let down, to be shut down, to try to count on someone to be let down. So I found that when I didn't count on anyone and I just, counted on myself, it was much easier to navigate life. But you also become a martyr and you shut down when you feel anything. So it took me a lot of experience and a lot of self-reflection to finally, first of all, not take anything personally anymore. I'm like, okay, well, this wasn't meant, or this was meant, or this was meant for a short time, and I'm going to keep moving. Um, and to also allow myself to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And as an adult now, I have realized that I picked the right people to be able to do that with, and that liberates them as well. I have a friend of mine who said, I've never met anyone who communicates the way you do. And I'm like, well, because if I'm getting angry at something or I'm letting someone else's actions affect me, then it's just my ego. It's my ego. I'm allowing myself to get hurt for what? For what? So that is another reason I allow my kids to be kids, and I want them to be for as long as possible. And I tell them, yes, go through these things, talk to me about it. So while I'm allowing themselves to be kids and be vulnerable, I'm also creating a bond with them where later down the road, when the rest of the world says that it's not acceptable to be vulnerable, it is with dad. It is with dad. So I don't have to keep anything. I don't have to hide anything. I don't have to deal with anything on my own. And I didn't have that. So many of us don't have that because our parents didn't know it either. As soon as they were
No,
affected, that's who they became. And
yeah,
they start to drink or they start to do whatever and they start to shut down. When you can renew that communication and allow yourself to be vulnerable again, the sky opens up. The
yeah,
relationships that you can build, the bonds you can build with people, so much more powerful than everyone walking around surface, not
right.
dealing with anything.
Surface
And
talking,
yeah,
surface
I
talking.
can't. I
But
can't. You
yeah,
know.
I didn't, I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up with, with the ability or the acknowledgement to do that. Who knew? I mean, I was years before you. But it it was only through my trials and tribulations and what I went through over the years that I am in a place where if I have to have a conversation with somebody,
Yeah.
I never point a finger and say, you did that. You did that. I always start with, so I want to come from my experience
Mhm.
and let you know what I am feeling. And I could be wrong, but I just wanted you to know. And that's always how I do things.
Yeah.
I never put somebody in a corner to say, with pointing a finger, oh, you do that, you've already lost.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
this is a pretty loaded conversation, even though we are at points where we've already gone through what it's like to be wounded by vulnerability, being sensitive and getting your teeth knocked out, metaphorically.
Yeah.
But so we're at a different place. But if anyone's listening and they're also struggling with vulnerability, what do I do? How do I do it? I think, just think about how you want to show up in the world. Do you want to be real and authentic, or put on some act and say, "Oh, I'm brave. I'm this. Nobody's going to get to me," which of course is not true. So I don't know, maybe people can take something from this conversation and look at themselves and say, how do I want to be? Do I want to be authentic? Do I want to be?
Yes. And here's the thing with that too. Sometimes we have to choose our friends more wisely, right? We have to choose the people we have to set the boundaries. Everyone talks about setting boundaries, but then when you get lonely, you go, "Yeah, I'm going to jump into this relationship anyway because I've been lonely for a while." And then the cycle just continues. And then this wound that you're talking about, we lay it bare again, we trust again, and we are risking that person that we didn't choose wisely to step all over it again, to get our teeth
Right,
knocked out again, metaphorically,
exactly.
right? And I think we really need to shut down, spend time with ourselves. It goes back to loving yourself, but truly loving yourself. And that comes a lot of times with isolation, and people are afraid of isolation. They're afraid to be alone. I went through a period where it was forced isolation. I was in a situation where I looked around and no one was there. And yes, I will, honey. And I even confided in the person I was going through a situation with that I felt like something human in me was dying. Something was dying, something very human. And what I realized was dying was the need to fill a void. And I've talked about this before. And when you don't have to fill a void, you can be very selective. You can be very selective with who you let in. And then you can really be yourself and communicate, but you'll also find in your communication, if someone is open to that and they can respect that, then they may be the one that you can be vulnerable with. If they can't respect your communication, or they're not allowing themselves to communicate and be vulnerable with you, then maybe you're in the wrong situation. And because you've isolated, because you know yourself and love yourself, you can gracefully keep it moving. And too many times we go through the motions of what people expect from us, and I see one of the biggest tragedies I ever see is an older person who is still miserable, who is still taking things personally and never figured it out. They're still doing the
Yeah,
same things they
yeah.
did 30 years ago, 40
Well,
years ago, you know.
they never dealt with their wounds. They never dealt with
No.
their things. And I, the one thing is that we've talked about it, but I don't think we isolated it, is communication. That is key. And you have to develop a communication that doesn't put somebody up against a wall. And, or because, as I said, once you point a finger, the conversation doesn't go anywhere.
Stop being
And
hurt by other people. Stop allowing yourself to be hurt by other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get into a relationship and all of a sudden, like, something someone did before they even knew you starts to creep in your head, and all of a sudden you start to feel differently. What is that? Again, we're going back. The only thing that exists right now is this moment. This moment. Not even yesterday, but this moment. So how are you going to let yourself ruin something, be affected by something that happened a long time ago? You're missing out on an opportunity to experience someone now. To experience someone who has also been growing, and maybe they've not been given the opportunity to be vulnerable. Now you're at this place where you can both be vulnerable. What a gift. What a gift. Why would you ruin it by going and living in the past? It's the same thing as saying, well, I was burned in the past, so I'm not going to let myself be burned
but,
again. The past doesn't exist.
but
Right
people,
now
yeah,
exists. You know, and
that's true.
you mentioned like blaming people. You did this to me. You did this to me. I went through an amazing scenario where I found a therapist, and first thing I went in and I said, well, she did this to me. And he goes, wait. What did you do to get here? And I go, wait, but I want to be a victim. I want to be a victim of this. And then I couldn't be. Now, okay. Yeah, what did I do to get here? Now I have to own my own stuff. I can't blame anyone anymore. And that was one of the most liberating things as well. And it's powerful. You let all that stuff go. I can be vulnerable. I can be vulnerable with my daughters. If I say something and it offends or hurts them, I don't say, well, I'm the dad, toughen up. I go, no, I'm so sorry. I apologize to you. I didn't realize you saw it that way. It just happened. Um, I didn't realize, and I'm so sorry that, that it hurt you or that it affected you that way. And that sets everything free. And as adults, we need to do that too, because we're going to mess up. We're going to make people feel things. And even if you're not taking anything personally, I also don't think that you internalize, you communicate. That hurt me. Wow, I'm really sorry that it hurt you. Now you're
Right.
both free. Now you're both
Yeah,
free. So when the occasion comes up where it's on the other foot, you can say, you know what? I'm really glad that we communicate because what you did, that affected me, that hurt me. And now it's more of a dance. It's more of a symphony. It's
right.
not two negative energies meeting up
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
fighting. It's freedom. It's
exactly.
liberation.
So I think we're almost coming to the end.
Yes.
What last words of wisdom would you like to share?
Gosh, there's so much. The big one is stop taking things personally. Take nothing personally. Take nothing ever personally. Go on your way. Live in your dream. Stay in your lane. People are going to come and go. Sometimes the interaction is going to be positive. Sometimes negative. Never take anything personally. That person who's mad at you, flipping you off, or acting agitated at the store, they don't even know you. They're not mad at you. You know what I'm saying? Don't ever take anything personally. Set yourself free. I mean, I got a lot of lessons I could impart, but those would be words of wisdom to think about. Never take anything personally because it's
I'm,
not.
I think if anyone hasn't seen or read Mel Robbins' book, Let Them,
I haven't. I want to.
I haven't read it, but just the title, if they want to stop seeing you, let them. If they want whatever, let them. And when I saw that title and I heard her talk about it, I said, you're right. You're right. So I am going to leave with just remember, let them.
Yeah, I love them.
It's not your story, it's theirs.
It's
And
theirs.
just move on.
Be
Just
you.
move
Yeah.
on.
Just be you and move on. Let them. I
Okay.
love it.
Intimate
Intimate conversations
conversation.
between a man and a woman. I love it.
I love it. Teriyaki, Chris Rushing. We'll get to see our next episode and hope you'll tune in. We'll think about some juicy, great topic to talk about.
Yes, we will. All right. Ciao,
Bye.
everybody. Ciao,
Bye.
Terry. Bye.